time, we'll call to order the regular city council meeting for April 22nd, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lisa, let the roll call show everyone is present. And we will move on to the approval of City Council minutes, April 8th, 2019.
I have one there.
Councilmember Kivel?
On page 3, it's kind of incidental, but still the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth line down, 2/3 of the way across, it says, he stated we're looking for them to replace, and I think it's just place their equipment inside smart poles. That's all I have.
I'll move the minutes as amended.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the minutes from Budget Workshop, April 4th, 2019.
I'll move the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. We have no bills this evening, so we'll move on to the approval of the agenda.
I'll move the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Approval of tonight's consent agenda.
I'll
Move the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. At this time tonight, we're going to do a couple proclamations this evening. Do we have any representatives from South Lyon Cycle? If you guys would like to stand. I didn't know if you guys had anything to say. I can just read it too. So, but
Get out there, Austin.
Yeah,
Step
come on.
up into the light.
I'll introduce myself. My name's Mark Childs. My brother Gary and I have been in business in South Lyon community for over 25 years now, and really appreciate the support we've had not only from the community but southeastern Michigan. Appreciate the support of the mayor, city council, Bob Donahue from the DDA, and this is our valued employee, Austin White. He's been with us for a long time, and he's very dedicated. He's known as the bearded one.
I love it. Well, the community appreciates you guys, and thank you for taking the time to be here tonight. From the Office of the Mayor, whereas April 1st, 2019 marks a milestone for South Lyon Cycle, celebrating their 25th year in the city of South Lyon. And whereas South Lyon Cycle has been family-owned by Gary and Mark Childs since its inception in 1994. And whereas South Lyon Cycle has been voted one of the best bike shops and has been meeting the needs of cyclists from all over Southeast Michigan. And whereas South Lyon Cycle has been an important, caring part of the community, contributing to many causes and needs without hesitation. And whereas in 1997, South Lyon Cycle was named Business of the Year by the local Chamber of Commerce. And whereas in 1998, the Michigan Retailers Association honored them as the 1998 Michigan Retailer of the Year. And whereas the owners of South Lyon Cycle have both served on the South Lyon DDA board. And now, therefore, I, Daniel L. Pelchat, Mayor, City of South Lyon, on behalf of the City Council and the entire community, offer congratulations to South Lyon Cycle as they celebrate their 25th year in business and wish them many more years of success. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for being here. We have a second proclamation this evening from the County Executive Declaration L. Brooks Patterson. The month of April 2019 as Fair Housing Month in Oakland County, Michigan. Whereas the month of April 2019 marks the 51st anniversary of the signing of the Federal Fair Housing Law under the Civil Rights Act of 1968. And whereas this landmark law, along with other federal and state legislation, broadens access to housing regardless of race, color, sex, national origin, age, marital status, religion, disability, or family status. And whereas Fair Housing Month is designed to heighten people's awareness of their rights under the law when pursuing the purchase or rental of housing. And whereas the housing counselors of Oakland County's Community and Home Improvement Division are experts in fair housing laws and are ready to assist any individual or family to ensure their rights when purchasing or renting a home. Now, therefore, let it be known that L. Brooks Patterson, Oakland County Executive, hereby authorize the assurance of this special proclamation designing April 2019 as Fair Housing Month in Oakland County, Michigan. And we'll move on to the discussion of downtown with Mr. Donahue tonight. What's that?
Public comment.
Oh, thank you. Forgive me, Bob. We'll actually open the floor for public comment. I got a little aggressive with the pen over here. At this time, we're going to open the floor for public comment. If you have anything to say, please state your name and address. We will close public comment, and now welcome down Mr. Donahue.
Okay, just a couple quick items, other than the items that Paul put in the report. The sponsorship is going well for the farmers market. The new sign at the farmers market showing the sponsors will be up hopefully May 2nd. And so it'll be a permanent sign, well, 6 months versus the yard signs that were always there. So that'll be up May 2nd. Had a good, cool Yule meeting on April 17th. It looks like we're having a 2-day event this time, devoting Friday night to just the special activities with Santa turning on the the lights. The Historical Society is having a meeting, and then we're going to report back on the details of the Friday night, December 6th. And so we'll see what the Historical Society has planned, how that will work out as a Friday night event. And then the parade and the city tree lighting at the Heinonen tree, and this little alteration, slightly shorter parade route to to McCaddy. Get my mixed streets wrong. So staging at the school on Whipple Street, coming down and turning the corner at McCaddy. So creating a 2-day event. I'm going to be working with Police Chief Jeff Heinonen, now on the DDA board, is chairing the event. So it's going to be exciting. I think we're going to have a lot more participation by downtown businesses, and really a lot more to that event this year. It'll be really good. Lastly, great meetings going on continuously with 111 and 113 North Lafayette. And real quick, this is from the architect. This is the building, the tallest one here. This is Venue. This picture was taken about 1900. There was a problem here with what is now Venue. This 1880s facade was removed, altered. Something happened in 1930. The facade that you see now as Venue is here. So the taller facade with the cornice, this is going to be totally restored to this look. The architect and the owners are working together, and so huge addition to downtown. Get all those original features back. And you see a little grainy from there, but everybody see that. So I think that'll be outstanding. And then plans continue with the architect on 135 East Lake of the Stone Building, the RCA building. So it's exciting to see that all coming together. That's it.
Councilmember Parisian?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bob, I'm glad to see your report from your conference. I thought that was really comprehensive and a lot of good material, so thank you for providing that.
You're welcome.
I have 2 bits of feedback I received from the community. With Ladies' Night Out coming up soon, the question that I received was whether or not the city can fund it. And I know it's not in our budget this year, but is there a way that we could allocate funds and make room for it in the budget, the DDA's budget for next year? Is that something that we can maybe sit down and discuss and see where we're at fund-wise, how much it costs to host? Because in the fall, we can probably pull those figures, right?
Right, there is money in the proposed budget for starting July 1.
Okay.
Fall, and then that would include next year's spring.
So for
There's
next
money
year.
for each.
Okay, next year we'll be hosting both?
It is a DDA event, the title, the name, and so even though the city may not be putting cash into it, there's a lot of in-kind time that the DDA and the city puts into it. So I know because this transitioned from a business organized event to a DDA recognized event, just the fact that there's not DDA cash specifically in their budget, it is coordinated by the DDA. A lot of the pieces of it are coordinated by me. There are chairs that are DDA board members. Tanya Nevitt and Annie Butchtrup are the chairs of that event, because our DDA events, we want chaired by a DDA board member
For spring or for fall?
for both.
For both. Okay, thank you.
So because our budget was very tight this year, we could not contribute to it as we had hoped we could. But
No,
it's in the
absolutely.
budget for next year.
Okay, great. That's good to know. My second point was the other bit of information I received was, is there a form of communication for the back and forth between the city and the local businesses? So if people wanted to submit information, like a survey, for instance, do we have anything like that currently?
We don't have a survey, but we could easily develop one.
Okay.
That'd be a thing we could do.
That might be a great idea, just so we can get a survey put out to all the businesses within our jurisdiction and get feedback as to, hey, what do you think priorities are? What's your feedback with communication, et cetera, things of that nature, to kind of facilitate
Sure.
blossoming our downtown.
Yeah, I mean, there's always an open communication. We've publicized that we meet for the DDA, but there's a need to communicate with all the businesses outside of the DDA too. So
I love it. That
We'll
sounds
get it going.
great. Thank you so much.
we'll do it.
Councilmember Walton, did you have something? Councilmember Kurtzwell, I'll come to you next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just would like to ask that you put that sign up on the back wall there on the counter so that anybody in our
Sure.
audience can take a
Yes.
look at it. It's
We'll leave it
a
there.
wonderful picture, and I think they might find it just as interesting as we do.
Okay. It's the tall one in the middle when I put it back there.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
Yes, Bob, I've received a ton of questions and inquiries regarding the proposed kitchen store. So what is the update on that? I mean, my phone's been
Okay.
ringing off the hook because.
Okay, they've had a problem getting their DBA, which is their doing business as.
Oh,
And actually, it'll have a lead name. It's a French name. It begins with an L. And I'm sorry, I don't have the name. It's kind of like Lyon something, but they haven't come in with their sign permit, and they will be in this week with their sign permit, and that name will be on the permit. But they're actually going to run 2 aspects. They're going to call the children's series of cooking the 12 kitchen elves. That'll be really the programs for the youth. But the L name, which will be determined later this week, which will be on their temporary sign and then their full sign, will be the adult cooking classes.
okay.
So we're waiting for that.
Yeah, because there's a lot of rumors kind of going around, and I said, hey, I don't know, I don't have these
Yeah.
answers, because parents heard that there were going to be
Yes.
cooking lessons for smaller children.
Yes.
And they thought that that was just a fabulous, fabulous opportunity, because they themselves are always going to YouTube and to find out how to do something, and they said,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be nice to just take them to an actual retailer where they can actually learn it hands-on? So
Yeah,
tons.
we should know by the end of the week, and then I think getting their sign up will solve that.
Okay, great, great.
And their website will be active too, I heard, in the next few days.
And how often do you get to the other businesses south on Pontiac Trail, like Brookdale Shopping Center? Do you get into those businesses and introduce yourself? Do you?
I have, it's been a while, and there have been changes, so keeping up with it managers change and that, but I try to get out this time of year and then kind of through the summer months because I can park the car and just kind of walk it. So I intend to do that again.
Because I
sometime.
also received questions from people south on Pontiac Trail that I just wanted to know if they could make a connection with the economic development director, or was he just concentrated and focused only on the downtown? So I think there's some confusion out there as to your role
Yep.
in the city, so I just thought maybe I'd bring that up, and maybe just a couple of handshakes and stopping in would help too. Lot of phone
I'm
calls
always
on
open to
that.
talk to all of them.
Okay,
Yep.
and I just want to let you know, Bush's actually has a nice sign inside their grocery store promoting the farmer's market.
Yes.
So I wanted to let you know about,
Great.
that, so.
They're sponsoring a special day. We're waiting for the schedule will be out. We had a great meeting, by the way. We had a standing room only at Java Coffee House this past Saturday for the vendors. So
Wow.
should be a good year, but that's good.
Yeah, so they're already out promoting you, so,
Great.
or the farmer's market, so. Thank you, Bob.
Councilmember Richards had something, and then I'll come over to you.
Bob, I just want to compliment you on the reprint here of this photograph, and I imagine it came through our historical society somewhere.
The architect got that from the Historical Society. Yes.
Just to give you a little bit of info on that, dating certain things, okay, chronologically. Electricity from outside of South Lyon came into town in 1918. Now, South Lyon had its own power plant prior to that, but they didn't have poles like that, okay, that you see with those insulators. Okay, so I date that picture somewhere in 1920 to 22.
Very
Okay,
good.
Because of the second automobile in there, and the type of tire that's on there. You
Wow.
got spoke wheels on the first one, which is 1905 to 1910 vintage, but the second one is in the 20s, okay?
Got it.
Just to let you know,
Very good.
okay?
I love it.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Good deal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Richards. Councilmember, go ahead.
It's me?
Yes.
So Bob,
Sorry.
just following up on that survey, kind of a time frame would it take to put that together, and let's get that out to the businesses, see what kind of feedback we get, to see what
I think
direction
what
we
I'm
need to
gonna
go
do
in.
is contact some other downtowns in the county and do the old R&D with their full knowledge. We work together at the different towns, so I will rip off and duplicate primarily what's being done somewhere else. And I know several of the downtown managers, so we'll make our own, share it with city manager and share it and, and then come up with a draft and people can input and then get it out. I mean, shouldn't take more than 2 to 4 weeks, let's say. time.
Okay, so about 4 weeks?
Sure.
Okay, great, thanks.
It's one of those things you just have to do it, or if you
Absolutely.
don't do it, it'll just linger.
So I'm asking the question. Thanks, Bob.
Councilmember Kivel.
Just a quick one. I know that you're intending to get around to all the businesses, even on the south end of the community, but I think we should probably be a little bit more proactive of trying to get the message out that your door is always open for anybody that has an interest in having a conversation with whatever might end up being available through the city to bolster some of their businesses, so.
I have had many, many conversations throughout the district, but like I say, things change, and I'm always open to that.
Right, I don't know if there's something on the website, but I mean, just
Yeah, we
something
can
that
let
makes it
people know.
free
Great.
to everybody.
Yep.
Anyone else with anything for Mr. Donahue? Okay, thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
At this point, we're going to move on to new business number 1. I'll give a brief explanation of this topic. The city has been meeting with representatives of HRC regarding our capital improvement plan for our utility systems. Our recent discussions led to the recommendations that are in the 2019-2020 city budget. As part of those recommendations, we need to first investigate the extent of the deficiencies in our system before we can address our long-term capital needs. We have included in the packet this evening the first phase of the study that are needed before we begin the necessary improvements outlined in the 1920 budget.
Mr. Mayor, If I may, at tonight's meeting, we do have two representatives from HRC here, Jesse Vandekreek as well as Roland Alex, that are going to kind of outline some of those items that are within the proposal. And obviously, council will be able to ask questions of that today.
Great. Thanks for being here, guys.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Manager Zelenik stated, my name is Jesse Vandekreek, Principal and Vice President of Hubble Roth and Clark, headquartered in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. With me this evening is one of my business partners, Mr. Roland Alex. Thank you for having us here this evening. As the mayor mentioned, in your packet, you have correspondence from Hubble Roth and Clark dated March 18th, 2019. I'd like to start out by saying that Roland and I have been meeting with city staff, Manager Zelenik, water and wastewater staff, discussing the capital improvement plans that are necessary for the city of South Lyon. That includes everything from roadway investments, sanitary sewer collection evaluations, and of course the reason we're here tonight, the water treatment plan, CIP plan. So we will be coming back to you in the future with other elements of your long-term capital improvement plan, which will include some short-term immediate needs, midterm, and again long-term sort of recommendations. So going back to the reason we're here tonight to discuss the immediate action that needs to be taken regarding the evaluation of the first four elements listed in the water treatment plan, capital improvement plan. Those that aren't familiar with the water treatment plant, I encourage you to make an appointment with Mr. Beeson, who is the licensed operator of the facility, to personally take a visit to the site. You can easily put an eyeball on each one of these elements, essentially, that are listed in the CIP. Some of them are more study-oriented as you get down to the 2021 year, where we're looking for alternate water source supplies, potentials. But the most immediate ones are very apparent and visible, just from simply a visit to the plant. A little bit of history. The last time that the city undertook a major improvement project at the water treatment plant was in the year 2000. So we are coming up on nearly 20 years since there's been any investment into the facility. It is starting to show its age. Some of the elements that we have on here, for example, the very first item is increasing water storage capacity. If you're familiar with the storage capacity in the city, there's a 1 million gallon concrete ground storage tank on Dorothy Street directly behind the plant, between the plant and the Yerkes Drain. Of course, you can see it from the park. The elevated water storage tank, how beautiful it looks. It's just repainted. Everybody's very familiar with that end product. So that facility and structure is suited to last us for a number of years now that we've been able to shore it up and get a new coating system on it. Well, with regard to the first item here, an increasing water storage capacity, there are issues that we noticed in 2017. Hubble Roth and Clark has prepared the original drinking water model for the city of South Lyon. This is a requirement that's a state of Michigan requirement. The Michigan Department of Environmental Quality requires the hydraulic model be updated every 5 years as part of your water system evaluation. The last time we submitted yours in South Lyon was in 2017. And at that time, we had noticed that during peak periods, such as what we're coming into right now, essentially when we leave winter and come into spring, the rainfall goes away, and those folks that have sprinkler systems, irrigation steps up. Even those that don't, bring their hoses out and make sure that their fresh lawn seed and their flowers get enough to drink. Quite frankly, we see a nearly twofold increase in water use in our peak periods, which are going to be coming up here over the next few months. In our modeling, what we noticed was that the actual elevations in the ground storage tank and the elevated storage tank during these peak demand periods, with all of our high service pumps running at the plant, we're losing ground. So we're slowly losing ground. And what we like to do is be able to maintain
when we're serving our peak capacity that the distribution system is calling for, we'd like to see the elevations in those tanks be filled at an equivalent rate so that that storage is available for things that it's there for, which is emergency reaction to fire response, large breaks in the system during those periods where that water can be supplemented and utilized while we're supplementing with emergency efforts to fix a main break. Some of you that have been around here long enough know that we've had those situations, unfortunately. It's just part of an aging infrastructure. So really the first element is identifying, based on the model, what the sweet spot is of how much additional storage capacity do we need. When you're engineering storage capacity, too much storage is bad too. If you have too much storage, you don't have the turnover that's necessary. You could have negative implications as a result of that. So essentially what we want to do is hone in on what the sweet spot is for the required additional storage capacity that's necessary at the plant. And I'm going to skip down to item number 4. Part of the reason this is very much at the top of our radar, not just because we're losing ground slightly, but the existing ground storage tank that I talked about that's out there, the concrete tank, that was constructed in 1980. There has not been, other than some minor repairs, really anything done to that tank. Not that there necessarily needed to be. There was a memo included in this report from, bear with me, I believe it was 2015. In the fall of 2015, it was reported that a leak was occurring near the lower portion or lower ring of that concrete tank. So in 2015, HRC, at the city's request, deployed our structural engineering staff to come out and observe the situation. At that time, we also reviewed the inspection tapes that the city has. The tank, a diver goes into that tank every biannually, essentially, and as a safety measure, and as required, again, videos the integrity of the tank. Our engineers evaluated that video. We evaluated what we saw from the external components. And again, if any of you go out there today, you can actually see what we're explaining in that report. There is reflective cracking coming through, essentially following the joints of the precast that's in there. Really what's happening, it looks like, is that there's fissuring on the inside of the tank, and there's likely migration of water into the wall. The steel rebar is corroding, and you're actually seeing that, and we do have some small leaks at the bottom of the tank. So back in 2015, we recommended that the immediate repair be an epoxy injection from the exterior, again, meant to be very short term, because quite frankly, it's like sticking your finger in a dike. The only way to repair or rehabilitate a concrete tank is to take it completely out of service, and we're in a position right now, it appears, to be able to salvage it. It just needs to be taken out of service, and the repair needs to be performed from the inside. So basically a structural liner system likely will need to be applied to the inside of that tank to ensure that it'll continue to operate for at least another 40 years. That's the intention. Trouble. We can't take that ground storage tank out of service. It's vital to the delivery of clean, finished drinking water to the residents of the city of South Lyon. That ground storage tank is the very first spot where the completely treated, filtered, finished water stops. That's what we're all working from. That's our bank of treated water in that tank. From there, the high service pumps pump it to the elevated storage tank, and then the system gets fed by gravity. Now, in order to take this tank offline to conduct the necessary repairs, we need to grab the bull by the horns on task number 1, which is how much do we do increase storage capacity by? How big is that tank? Where do we site it? What are the costs to build it? Because quite frankly, you need to build the new tank before you take the existing one offline to rehab it. So 1 and 4 are really tied together. Like I said, there's only 4 items in this first phase. We came up with what we felt were the critical elements. Again, working with staff, you'll see there are 14 items in here. that we talked about. Let's deal with these ones this fiscal year as far as evaluation, get the financing in place, know what we need to do. And then in next fiscal year, we'll bite off the second phase. So the other two items in this very first phase that we're talking about tonight are the horizontal pressure filter system and the induced draft aerators. There are photos in this proposal that show those vessels that are the horizontal pressure filter tanks. Back in 2000, when the last major project was performed at the plant, the real necessity then was we needed to increase capacity. The community was growing rapidly. The community grew from when I first started working here, there was a population of just over 5,000 residents. That was 25 years ago. In the year 2000, the city started experiencing pink water. People's laundry was pink. Why was that? The horizontal pressure filters were not filtering the water properly anymore. And when we got into investigating those, we had found that, once again, they were about 20 years old. The media in the inside of those tanks had essentially hardened and turned into coral, and the water was passing right through it through the path of least resistance. And then that water was going into our ground storage tank, being pumped to our elevated storage tank, and coming out to our residents looking awfully pink because it was too much iron. Our filter system wasn't strong enough to handle the increase in population, the increase in use. So back then in the year 2000, or about the year 2001, actually, we not only replaced the horizontal pressure filters that were there, but we added larger ones. We doubled the capacity of the water treatment plant at that time to treat from 2.45 million gallons per day. We added 2 million gallons per day of treatment capacity. So the plant right now has the capability, a firm capacity of providing 4.45 million gallons per day. But here we are again, 20 years later. We have horizontal pressure filters that have not been inspected. That is not something that the city staff would do or is trained to do. That is something that is specified and spelled out, and the budget is put in here for the manufacturer of those tanks to third party to come out, remove the manways, take each one of them off one by one, enter the tanks, take core samples of the media to identify how much life is left in them. Typically, they only last, again, manufacturer's recommendation is 18 to 20 years. We're right at it. So on this one, we're really trying to head it off. What also came to very obvious light was the exterior condition of those tanks. When they were originally provided, they were provided with a three-part epoxy coating system. Since those tanks have been painted over with latex paint, I think with temporary or correctional probation office staff that was, just trying to help, mowing lawns, painting things. Well, those tanks got painted with the improper material. You can see what they look like today. That material's deteriorated, it's peeled off. The welds actually look like they're starting to rust. So we're also going to be working with the manufacturer on a recommendation for the shell itself. Included in the budget is ultrasonic thickness testing, not only of the tank vessel walls, but of the welds. And then if any repairs need to be made before they're recoated, blasted and recoated, they would. But we don't know what those costs are yet until we actually get in them and do the inspection. The difference between these filters and the ones we had before, the old filters that I was talking about pre-2001 did not have simultaneous air and water backwash. That led to the iron essentially solidifying the media. So when we replaced them, we actually updated them with a simultaneous air and water backwash system, which means there's a series of nozzles and varying gradation layers of media, so that every time we backwash those filters, they have air added to them, they fluff up so the media doesn't bind from the iron, and then it settles back down. What needs to be looked at is what are the condition of all of our nozzles that are in there that facilitate resuspending that media every time we backwash, as well as inspection of the trough system on top. So there are some internal components other than just the media that need to be evaluated by that third party. So that's item number 2. You'll see that 2A is media inspection, 2B is evaluation and inspection of simul-wash internals, and 2C, of course, is exterior painting and sealing of the vessels themselves. And then lastly, but certainly not lonely, is the induced draft aerators. A lot of folks don't even know those are there. When you're driving down Pontiac Trail and you turn down Dorothy Street, head towards the plant, first thing you see are these big stainless steel slats on the side of that building. Well, those slats actually come off. And inside of those slats are 3 induced draft aerators, they're called. When we expanded the plant in 2001, we had 2 small induced draft aerators. We needed a third one. We put in a very big third one and abandoned one of the original ones in place for budget reasons. We had enough capacity to provide that 4.45 firm MGD with a new large IDA and the existing IDA, but we could mothball one of them. So one of them's been sitting there for 19 years, and it hasn't been used at all. Now we know we need to use it. We need to replace it. We need to put in a new one. And we need to, again, have the manufacturer come out and actually do a full top-to-bottom evaluation of those things. Those are essentially passive-type devices. There's small electric load. Essentially what they do, just a little water treatment 101. Our groundwater here in South Lyon, was provided with a well system. You know where the wells are at out in the park, right? The little brick buildings here and there. A couple of them. One of them is actually right next to the Witches Depot. It looks just like the depot. It's a nice little historic complement to the park. But every single one of those well houses brings water from approximately 120 to 130 feet below ground. And all of our water in this area, basically groundwater, passes over limestone. And what that gives us when we pull it up is very hard water. So our raw water here in the city of South Lyon has approximately 4 parts per million of iron in it. That means that it's clear while it's underground, but the second that it hits oxygen, it turns bright red. Well, what all does this mean? I'm telling you this because that's what these induced draft aerators are for. They're our first attack at the hard water, at the iron. So every single one of the wells gets piped up and into the induced draft aerators first. What the induced draft aerators do is they convert that water, they convert the iron in it from a ferrous to a ferric state. And they do that simply with air. There's a blower at the top of each one. When the water passes through it, the blower sprays it out like a fine mist shower. And then the water falls through stacks and stacks and stacks of what they call coke plates. And for a simple term, they're basically big plates that if you flip them open, you looked at them, they have holes all the way through them, varying levels. So basically it's spraying the water, misting at the top, and then letting it drop through and hitting all these different levels. When we expanded the plant, the low-service wet well below the IDA, we needed to increase the capacity so the water could, what happens, the water passes through those. To get that chemical process to complete with the air, we have to have 20 minutes of detention time on the low-service wet well. So everything's all set up, everything's there. The equipment just needs to be inspected, maintained by the third-party manufacturer, and ideally we bring a new one on and put it where the abandoned mothballed one is to ensure we get proper water treatment prior to being forced through the horizontal pressure filters. So that's what the induced draft aerators are, a little bit of history on them, what they do. And again, they're hidden. Those are ones that you really need a ladder to climb up there, or Mr. Beeson and his staff would actually have to physically remove a section of the stainless steel, or aluminum actually, they're aluminum grates for you to see those induced draft aerators. So there are many other items in here, like I said. There are pictures in here. The fiscal year 2021 are items 5 through 14. Again, we'll come back and talk to you about all those later. But this evening, based on the history, the condition, the need to continue to provide the residents of South Lyon with high-quality finished water, it is recommended that council move forward with authorizing Hubbell and Clark to proceed with Phase 1, the first 4 elements, for the fiscal year of 2019 2020 for the amount not to exceed $30,120. In here also is a complete breakdown of every single task and element of work that justifies items 1 through 4 individually and cumulatively equates to the value as previously mentioned. With that, I'd like to answer any questions that the mayor or council may have at this time.
Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
Well, certainly appreciate the discussion. This is an effort that's long overdue, obviously. You brought up the report back in 2015. Doesn't look like they reacted to it at that particular time. I do have a couple of questions regarding some of the things that you mentioned in here. With regard to the pressure filter maintenance, you talk about with proper cleaning and washing, life of that media can be extended. Do you know if they did any of that during the 20 years that those have been in place? Has that been part of the preventive maintenance program for that equipment by chance?
Perhaps Mr. Beeson would like to
We
answer
do
that.
a backwash cycle weekly on all of those filters. So each day we do one. Other than that, there isn't any preventive maintenance we can do.
So that's the washing and cleaning you're referring to is just backwashing the filters?
And in the summer, we do it twice, 2 filters during the day. So we make sure they are washed properly and backwash. So
And in that, I might add, in that backwash operation that staff performs, they can physically watch the discharge of the backwash to see it start out red and watch it literally lighten, turn to a straw color and lighten right up. So we feel pretty confident that with the Simowash system, we've had relatively good life out of these filters, but we don't want to be in a condition where we have red water, being that we're right at the end of the useful life of the media.
You also see a pressure drop when you do the backwash so that you see that they're less clogged in that?
you won't see it anywhere else but in our water. Yeah, there are gauges on there telling us that, hey, it's time to backwash. But we do it before we see that pressure wash. We learned from the past experience that, hey, we need to do 1 a week during the winter, or I'm sorry, 1 a day during the winter, and we need to do twice, or 2 of them during the day in the summer. So each one gets backwashed each week.
And that is a very vigilant way to operate these systems. The controls are set up, which the city has never elected to utilize, to have an automatic trigger call for the backwash only when the pressure built up enough.
So we're doing it based on time rather than on condition?
Correct. The city has been doing it to be proactive and not wait until the filter builds up to a point where it automatically tells you to do it.
But wouldn't you be able to set those set points at the point that you want them so that, again, basically, let me just, if I'm understanding what you're saying, if we're going out there on a time-based frequency, we are potentially over PMing that piece of equipment rather than reacting to it on a condition base. Okay, now we could certainly set that trip point lower, so not waiting until it's totally clogged. But if we're going out there, we're spending extra time, extra manpower, potentially doing this when it wasn't really necessary. They stand that potential.
There's a requirement for them to inspect each one of these every day. There's a requirement for them to be in there every day. There's certainly nothing wrong with backwashing a filter a day.
So this is an add-on activity they do while they're running their rounds.
Yep, it's part of our rounds.
Okay.
Every day.
The other question I have is, and this is totally separate, and Ron and I talked about this a little bit tonight. Now, HRC's been involved with that plant for a long period of time. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm looking at, the upcoming budget. We have in the upcoming budget $15,000 allocated to buy some Kaiser blowers, Kaiser, whatever the proper name is. They're manufactured over in Germany. The repair parts are proprietary. You got to get them from the manufacturer. We just bought 3 of these units in 2015. 1 was going to go into service, 2 were going to go on the shelf. And, we keep buying these units periodically. And again, we buy them because we got to buy them from the supplier because that's what fits the footprint that's in there. Because we haven't, we didn't want to incur the cost of re-engineering that particular blower setup to put in something that might be a little more cost effective, something perhaps with a little greater reliability that, we could get replacement parts for a little more readily and a little less expensively. And I'm just curious, is that part of the evaluation that you would do in this plant and look at those opportunities? Because, I mean, what happens is the price of those blowers has gone up 40% since we purchased those things in 2015.
These blowers that you're speaking to are not at the water treatment plant.
Right.
That's completely
Those
separate.
are
I mean, they're at the
compressors.
wastewater plant, and you're associated with that too, right?
That's correct,
Okay,
yes.
so I'm asking, in that particular instance, do you look at those opportunities for improvement in the way in which we're functioning? Because, I mean, I'm assuming, again, that this came in as part of a turnkey project with that particular equipment in place, and we've been dealing with it ever since. They've had to cut inspection ports into them so they can monitor the unit and so forth over the course of time. But again, when it comes time to replace them, we're back to that manufacturer, held captive, buying something like that, as opposed to biting the bullet and looking at, is there a better way, is there a less expensive way, is there a more reliable piece of equipment that if we spent a little bit more upfront, in the long term, it would bear itself out to be the more cost-effective approach. Do you look at any opportunities like that?
When authorized, yes. That has not even been brought to the table yet with regard to evaluating the current state of the blowers at the wastewater treatment plant. But absolutely, yes, that can be scoped out and brought back under a separate proposal. That's a completely different process.
Oh, no.
You're talking about a plant there that is 100% reliable on air. Those are the most heavy, high-duty pieces of equipment in that plant. So there are going to be significant challenges to operating completely air-driven plants, regardless of the manufacturer. But certainly a present worth analysis can be performed on the capital costs, the operation and maintenance, and any sort of modifications to facilitate installation of alternative equipment. So to answer your question, yes.
Okay, so it's a service that you could provide if,
Absolutely.
we just need to look at doing something like that, because, I mean, the statement was made back in 2015 that, it's going to cost a lot of money to do that, to change that footprint, but at some point, the replacement purchase of these units over and over and over is going to cross that threshold that we could have made that effort and made that commitment and done the effort.
Maybe, again, these are.
Okay, don't know. I mean, these are things you got to be looked at, that's all. I just hate to be in a position where we do the same thing over and over and over and expect to get different results, that's all. Thanks.
Councilmember Kibble?
I was just curious, these, the horizontal pressure filters, is it likely that the medium is going to need to be changed in any of the three?
Based on my experience with the age of the media, we've extended the life of it due to designing the Simo-Wash air and water backwash elements. But regardless, even with that technology, the media has reached its useful life. But that still shouldn't bar the third party from coming in and taking a soil or a media profile.
Well, the reason I'm asking, I want to find out, are they somebody that's relatively local?
They are.
And I mean, do they take one offline, do that, and then address them down the series of?
They would do them all when they're here. Their quote includes doing them all when they're here.
Okay, so it's not
I want to say that there's
time
$5,000
Minnesota?
$1,000 to do them all.
Uh-huh.
Again, once over 20 years. That's
Oh, no, exactly. So that system will be offline for the time that they're doing the media change?
Yeah, so it's a 2-day process.
Yeah, okay.
They'll bring a crew in, they'll fly them in, they'll stay 2 days, and we'll have to go down the line and isolate each one.
Okay.
Now, the best case scenario with, again, I've got a lot of experience working with these filters, is that's all we have to do is replace the media.
I mean, it sounds like a water softener, essentially. So the discharge is just taken to the wastewater treatment plant?
That's type 2 manifest for disposal,
Yeah.
correct, because it was technically for an industrial use, even though it's stripping iron out of groundwater. So it's very low on the scale as far as there's nothing dangerous about it.
Right.
But yeah, it has
Well, I
to
mean,
be
it goes
all-
through the plant, right?
But likely we can see that the media is going to need to be changed out. I would, by all intents and purposes, it's time for the media.
It makes perfect sense.
Scenarios, we have other internal failures, nozzles that have sheared off. I've seen that in the past. Maybe some welding that would have to occur on the trough that's along the intop because of the intensiveness of the Simo-Wash. But long and short, the media removal, I would pretty much expect that has to be done. And in the best case, our mechanical components on the internal of all these vessels is still intact and will need very little, or in the best case, will not need to be replaced or, if anything, minor maintenance.
I mean, I'm assuming you were talking about they're going to analyze the thickness of the housing and all that kind of stuff to make sure that's all good. So is that they cut out a section in the event that it's
Ultrasonic thickness testing. So it's all done with a remote.
No, I understand that. I mean, if they have to do a repair, though, they cut out a chunk and then weld in a new piece?
Depending on the magnitude. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So to me, it seems like kind of a no-brainer. I don't know why I like the idea of doing the inspection for the structural integrity, but changing the medium to me seems like that should just be a given that we're doing that. I mean,
it likely is, but
yeah.
just doing that without having the internals inspected is highly.
Well, no, I mean, you look at the structure itself, but the
Man-way
mechanism.
of this thing, Ron might be able to fit in there. I can't fit in there. My shoulders are too broad. But it's a process getting in this thing. And again, once the seal's broken, part of their proposal, even when they're done, is replacing all the seals on these things. Because they're pressurized vessels.
Mm-hmm.
That's why this is, again, third-party supplier. They're an expert in what they do. They do travel all around the country, and they have them in water treatment plants across the country, wastewater plants. We had a very good experience working with them when they installed and started everything up. They are out of Minnesota. But again, their 2-day trip, their total quotation was $6,000 and change.
Right, I saw that. That's why I was kind of wondering why we're
Just the right way to
We're
do
not
it.
just anticipating that being the case. They're not the ones that'll do a paint job on those tanks, though, are they?
No.
Okay. All right,
On
thank
that
you.
inspection report, we will develop a list of the work that needs to be done, and then likely that would be put out as a competitive bid, which the city always requires on capital improvement. And the painting will be a specific element of work to be done on those vessels. So the company that might be doing any repairs or the media replacement will likely not be the company doing the painting. The company doing the painting will be someone who did the elevated storage tank.
Right,
Specializes
Dixon,
in
something like
shipping these things down, containing it, putting on a 3-part epoxy coating system that's meant to
Right.
be there.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kurtzwell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been spending a lot of time researching this. I don't have, a complete understanding of everything. But a couple of things are sort of jumping out at me. First of all, I want to thank HRC for being a consultant for the city. I think it's very critical that the city have experts that know what they're doing, that are handling these kinds of issues, because it's clear to me that the city has not necessarily been vigilant in maintaining some issues over there in the with the water system. It's very clear. It's just absolutely jumping out. The issue with the horizontal pressure filter maintenance system, my understanding is on the media that is used in these filters that you don't repair the media, because what it does is there is a structural integrity to that media, and if you go in and pull a core out or do a test and think you're going to repair it or whatever, it somehow destabilizes that core unit that's in there. And that what you do is you replace it, you don't repair it. Am I correct, or?
The media, right.
Yes.
The only media in these sort of, there are media in some horizontal pressure filters that can be recharged.
But
But
not-
that's manganese green sand. And normally manganese green sand is only in these filters when you're trying to remove arsenic.
So that would be.
South Lyon has no arsenic, so this is just a standard
Well, you would
gradation of
find,
coal, it's anthracite.
you would find arsenic in areas where you have crops, like apple trees, where apple trees tend to, when you go near an apple orchard, and you will find arsenic in the ground. I mean, that is something that comes with that. So depending on what you have in your area, but that was my understanding, is that you don't repair the media, you replace it.
Well, the unit you can't, just the media
It's the
itself.
media inside.
Gotta go.
That has to go.
That's right.
Okay, so, and what I don't understand on this is that If the filters were in place in 2001, then 10 years in, a decade in, would have been 2011. What is the time period in which these filters should be at least examined just on a due diligence or maintenance? Or do you sit back and wait for the clock to tick and wait till you get to year 15? I mean, when do you become proactive and say, you know, I think we ought to get in there and check that media, just to check, just to be safe, instead of waiting till the 11th hour, which is what we're doing right now, and going in and saying, okay, let's test it. I don't think you should be testing. I think you just bring them in and replace them. That's it, bottom line. Is there a maintenance plan for this?
Essentially, the city's performing the maintenance on a daily basis. From the standpoint that they're backwashing the pressure, they're backwashing each pressure filter individually. They're watching the pressure as, you know, it starts out high and gets low. They're watching the discharge to see that the media is actually accomplishing the objective when they first start out the backwash cycle. It's very dirty, it's red. When they come to the near end of the backwash cycle, it's turned to straw, if not clear. So the maintenance is essentially monitoring it on a daily basis. What really drove this initially was the external appearance of these tanks, quite frankly.
It was the external, not the performance
Correct.
of the media itself.
And the media hasn't failed. Again, nobody
Okay.
has red water here in the city of South Lyon.
Okay.
However, it is at the end of its useful life. The media is expected to last 18 to 20 years. We're in the 19th year. So I think that the city staff's been diligent about operating and maintaining the system.
Okay.
I do.
Then on to C, I was not pleased to see that the paint on the exterior of this had been compromised. You know, I get it, people are just trying to help people, but that tells me whoever gets hired really needs to understand these systems, because somebody gave somebody an order, not an order, but said, would you go over there and paint that? And somebody pulled some paint out and thought they were doing a good job, but it's clear somebody did not know what they were doing when they requested somebody to go over and paint this. So whoever is hired really has to be a good technician and really has to know what they can and cannot do to these things. This is, to me, this has been a weakness in terms of city management in some areas overall. But I've been critical of some of those issues, and I think there's some evidence of it right here, is that we really need these top-grade professionals at whatever scale we need to pay, within reason, to get them in here so that we can get these things on a schedule, so that we're not running into these 11th hour issues. I'm also very disturbed that you issued a letter to the city back in 2015 listing all these issues. And here we sit today, almost 4 years later, and we're discussing them. So I think the city needs to understand that we need to take a very proactive approach to over there in the water department, and that is what the enterprise funds are for. That is what you set your water rates at, and if water rates need to be increased slowly over time in order to meet the capital improvements that need to be done in that water department, the time is, I've said this before with the retirement plan, you have got to quit kicking the can down the road. And when I saw that letter dated 2015, that was just typical of what the city does. They just kick that can down the road, and they let the next city council or the next city manager or whoever else is in charge to sit down and figure out how to solve the problem. So the problem's got to get solved, bottom line. And we got to spend the money. And I think people need to understand that these expenses are going to be in the millions of dollars. And if water rates need to be increased, then they need to be increased. But this is a system that has to be protected, secured, and maintained. So that's my statement. Thank you.
Councilmember Kennedy?
So it looks like you're projecting that it's 180 days to complete the study once the approval's been given.
Correct.
How quickly to convene that kickoff meeting? I mean, how quickly could this actually begin?
Likely within the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
And part of that, to be honest, part of that delay is the logistics of the third party and getting them in, again, making sure we have a comprehensive report. And we've done our due diligence on the true capital costs for appropriate budgeting for each individual element here. Nobody likes a surprise. And if you've committed to these 4 items, we want to shake in every bush so that we know what the true budget and the potential increase in water rates needs to be to support it.
So again, I just want to make sure it's not going to be a hurry up and wait type thing that we're waiting 60, 90 days to get the ball in motion here.
Likely, like I said, we would have our kickoff meeting within the next, if authorized tonight, I would get things moving in our office with the respective teams that are working on this, the modeling staff with regard to the sizing, and we would be in a position to have a kickoff meeting within the city within the first 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Richards, go ahead.
Mr. Vandercreek, you and your company have a tremendous advantage that we don't have, plus you've worked with the city for quite a long time on this water plant. Okay, not to say maybe it doesn't matter completely, but comparatively, South Lyon's probably not the worst hardness of water that you have encountered in other communities of similar water systems, but maybe not exactly the same. Okay, can you give us an evaluation of what your estimates would be based on your company's experience, okay? If you can look into your, before we get together with meetings, if you can look into your company background with other communities comparatively, how hard their water was and how well the system worked and how hard ours is. We know it needs to be done, okay? No question about it, okay? And there may not be a cheaper way to go about it, and I'm always looking for something cheaper, but there may not be one, okay? Anyway, I'm just asking you to please look into that for us, okay? And see where we fall within the range of feasibility, okay? For a price range, as Maggie has, Councilman Kurtzwell has said, you know, how much is it gonna cost between 1 and 5 million or what, you know? So you can give us a ballpark figure.
Absolutely, and that's a great question, Councilman Richards. The scope that's in here for the first phase of elements 1 through 4 will specifically give you an engineering estimate of the cost attributed to each element. With regard to the hardness, relative hardness of water, certainly we could do an evaluation of the raw water that's brought in by the neighboring communities, but I think to some degree you're absolutely right. In this region, that tends to be a regional issue. Anything here you guys are in the headworks of the Huron River watershed. All of the groundwater heads south and west towards Ann Arbor. Everything ends up in Ford Lake. So everything upstream of you going up to Milford and all the way down around is pretty much going to have iron content of raw water in that approximately 4 parts per million range. It will. And actually the system that you guys have here, induced stress aeration, followed by horizontal pressure filter to strip, is probably the leanest, meanest, most effective way at getting that iron out. What you don't have, that some other communities do, is a water softening element at the end, which is very costly, has a big disposal element issue with regard to the salts that are generated. So essentially, your plant is lean and mean for accomplishing its objective. It really is. You would have to take another step to treat this water any better, adding softening, reverse osmosis. Very costly, not necessary. Softening could be driven by a community desire, perhaps. You go up the road in Fenton, they have one, but it's not that common.
Yeah, okay, I agree. That's it.
Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
Anybody else?
No,
Anybody else?
I just was making sure we didn't have a second. Yep.
On to what Councilman Richards is stating, which is a very good perspective, and this goes to the city manager, is that the sooner we get those numbers, the better off the city manager will be able to, because we're getting ready to approve a budget. We have to approve the budget by the end of May. So we're at the end of it. We're about 30 days away. And I would like to know where the money is going to come from to pay whatever dollar amount HRC brings forward and says this is what it's going to cost. So there's that issue. And if there's going to be a water rate increase, and I'm not saying that there is. I mean, we may be able to absorb it within the fund balance or the enterprise funds themselves. But I think you're also up against a time limit in when you can raise the water rates. I'd have to go to the charter, but I think it's Article 9 that deals with utilities, could be. So I don't know if you can just raise the water rates in December. I think this is the time that you raise the water rates so they're ready for the July 1st billing. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know for sure, but I'm just trying to recall a little bit. So from a budget standpoint, the sooner you can get those numbers in, the better, because I want to know where in the budget the money's going to be coming from.
City Manager Zelnick, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I know we've kind of gone through a lot of things of South Lyon Water System 101 tonight for not only council members, but the public, and we'll be going through a lot more of these as we start to make a lot of the improvements. Specifically, in the 2019-20 budget, we already have budgeted money for items that are going to be discussed and found out within this particular study for the horizontal pressure filters, for the potential new water storage tank. We have money identified there for $1 million. There's $200,000 for the horizontal pressure filters. There's other items in there. And even more specifically, we do have money within this year's budget to do a water and sewer rate analysis. So we do move forward with identifying what our needs are going to be within the future, working with not only this study, but items that are identified in the longer term that we've had these meetings with Hubbell, Roth, and Clark to try to identify what our rates need to be to address this for not only short term but long term, whether it's a gradual increase in rates or it needs to be done quickly based upon what they do find within this particular study. One thing I do want to mention, it was mentioned that it was regarding the 2019-20 budget. These items that we're talking about looking at will be addressed in the 2019-20 budget, but this specific item that we're asking for tonight is going to be paid for out of the 2018-19 budget, so they can get started on this right away.
The fees.
The fees for this tonight, this particular study, the $30,120.
Councilmember Walton, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, when I ran for council, it was because of this water tower issue that was leaking in the park and the parking lot next to it, not being able to get it resurfaced because of this issue. So I'm all for approving this and getting it moving and getting it moving quickly. As Councilmember Kennedy pointed out, we need to get a jump on this. So I'd like to make the motion.
Could I just ask, I want to ask another question if I
We can
could.
go discussion after the motion. Go ahead.
Sure. I'd like to make the motion to approve HRC to complete the first 4 elements of the CIP in an amount not to exceed $30,120.
Second.
Councilmember Kivel, go ahead.
There had been an allusion to the idea of trying to do comprehensive water softening throughout the community. Historically, it's always been portrayed as we could buy everybody like 2 or 3 water softeners for their home for the cost of doing something like that on the city-wide kind of scale. So has technology changed where that is not necessarily the same ratio? I mean,
I wouldn't say that there have been any landmark.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well.
Processes
So-
for water softening. So no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And part of it's the space we have there too. I mean, you're running out of room.
Yeah, true enough, right.
Quite frankly, this elevated storage tank that you absolutely have to have for emergency duty purposes is likely going to utilize the space that might even be available to expand this plant for softening in the future, so.
And some of our neighbors are already suffering the consequences of having to remediate salt from their downflow, or outflow. So I don't want to end up getting into a situation where we're creating a problem because we want to end up solving something that's already being addressed.
Separate
Yeah.
sludge disposal for it. I mean, it's a
Right.
whole nother treatment process to add on. and
Yeah.
It's
Thank you.
complex and costly.
Right.
Anyone else with anything to discuss on that? Okay. We have a motion by Councilmember Walton, supported by Councilmember Kurtzwell, to approve the completion of the first 4 elements of the CIP in amount not to exceed $30,120. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, guys, incredibly informative, and thank you, Mr. Beeson, and your staff out there for running a lean, mean water treatment facility. This time, we'll move on to the budget this evening. Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
I received a lot of questions from individuals in the community that wanted to know what Lloyd Collins' vacation buyout was, and I believe, Paul, that was $30,000?
I'll have to check the exact figures. I don't have it in front of me, but I can find that out for you.
Okay, so I think it was roughly around 30,000, and this is one of the reasons why council went and changed the use it or lose it rule with respect to vacation pay, because that $30,000 that was just paid in January could clearly go to Parks and Recs, it could go to the DDA. Those are taxpayer dollars that could have been used and put to a better allocation. So I think it's unfortunate that South Lyon was behind the eight ball on that one. Many communities around us had made that change decades ago, and could have saved some money along the way if we had made that change earlier. Additionally, when I spoke with MERS, that $30,000 is also included in the pension calculation for income. So now what you have is what is called pension spiking, which I've been talking about for almost 4 years, in terms of how pensions can be spiked, and this is one of the techniques and the tools that is being used, is enhancing your pension through these kinds of payments. So the taxpayers lost $30,000 on the vacation buyout, and they're also going to get hit with an enhanced pension payout when he starts collecting a pension. So I'm glad that council made the change, and I do want to let people know that Lloyd Collins didn't do anything wrong. He played by the rules. The city had this particular formula in place for decades, and like I said, they were behind the eight ball and just didn't make the change when they should have made the change. So hopefully the new use it or lose it will generate some additional income for the city, because these vacation buyouts, I believe, are pretty much over with. So I wanted to bring that out because there's been a lot of questions about it. And again, Lloyd Collins didn't do anything wrong. He played by the rules that the city permitted him to play by. So just want to make sure I made that clear. A lot of questions on that. Thank you.
Anyone else with anything on the budget this evening? We'll move on to the manager's report.
I want to update council as well as the public on a few things that are going on in the community. As I updated or mentioned to council within a prior update, we discussed regarding a partnership that we're doing with the library in relationship to bringing photos for display around town. This is part of a project that the library is bringing to the community and partnering with NASA to bring 15 different photos, actually had photos on each side, so there's 30 photos that are going to be placed at various locations around town discussing history, discussing planets, solar system, stars, different photographs and things with great explanation. It's not costing us anything to get these shipped to us. All we're going to be doing is displaying them and working with the library. They'll be up for the months of June, July, and August. It was a good conversations that the library had with the Cultural Arts Commission in relationship to this, and the residents of the community. It's kind of similar to the Inside Out program with the Detroit Institute of Arts, but this actually has to do with space and science, and it's part of a program that the library is actually putting on this summer. Was discussion regarding the budget. We'll be bringing that again before council at the May 13th agenda, and that will be on the agenda for additional discussion with adoption at the May 28th meeting. I did mention in the past regarding the development process that we've been working on regarding a flow chart for potential projects within the community. We've been working with staff and our consultants, so the public and businesses, whoever wants to develop within the area can not only go online, will be able to check with the city for a review on what needs to be accomplished and when in development processes. And right now, we've already been instituting some of these things where we have the developers or people that want to come in and do something with their particular business, whether it's expansion or bring something to the community, where we offer free consultation, where we sit down with different department heads to meet with them, discuss with them what they potentially can bring to the community and how we can actually help them along with the process. We did talk about the Summer Harvest Festival. We've been working with the Witches Hat regarding that. It appears that they're going to be moving that to next year, so we'll be bringing back something at a later date for that partnership that they're going to be having with the South Lyon Rec Authority. I want to bring up that we've been awarded a grant through the McLaren Brooksy Way Mini Grant Project. We applied for a grant, and this is for the purpose of installing a wheelchair swing at McCaddy Park. I'll be going tomorrow to get that grant award. Want to update on Ladies Night Out. It was discussed a little bit tonight. That is on for May 10th from 5 to 9 p.m. All of you in front of you this evening have those little pink bands. Those are something that are going to be giving out at the event for the attendees. The last item was I put on there had to do with the South Lyon School Resource Officer. We did have that in last year's budget, but council did not discuss whether they wanted to include that within the future year's budget, and I want to make you aware of that for some discussion either at that meeting that would be occurring on May 13th. And that's all I have this evening.
Councilmember Priesen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Manager Zelenik, I have a quick question for you in terms of the grants that we've been receiving, which I'm pleased to see we're receiving grants. That's great. But are we keeping track of everything we're getting? Just because I'd like to see from year to year what we're accumulating, what we're able to get, what we're not getting, if we're looking for grants in the grand scheme of what we're searching for and what we're actually obtaining, just kind of to do a comparison and see. I know we have a grant system where we look and are able to search for grants, but is it working? How's that going?
Well, I think it's working. I think we've,
Looks like
some of the grants that we've got just within the last 3 months, some of the ones specifically with the fire department, this particular grant, we're going to be researching a lot more. It was discussed within our budget meeting regarding having additional staff time, potentially working on that as well. We did have one of the employees go through a 2-day grant training process.
Excellent.
Through the SEMCOG. But yes, we can definitely prepare something and kind of show how we're moving forward each year and hopefully getting better at it each year too.
And just to be clear, it's not that I need anything. I was just wondering if we had something already in effect where we can confirm, where we're just tracking, like a tracking device for us.
We'll track it. We'll get something for you.
Cool. Thanks.
Councilmember Walton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Manager Zelnick, I just really want to say congratulations on that grant for the wheelchair swing at McCaddy Park, because it's something that I asked for over a year ago, so I'm really happy that we are getting it and super excited to introduce that to our disability community.
Well, we're really excited about it too, and getting the award for something like that. And that was really working with the Parks and Rec group and initiated by individuals on that, as well as a resident that tried to help us out and try to apply for it. We didn't know whether we could get it or not, but each and every one of these grants, how little they may be, $1,000 grant, $10,000, $5,000, $200,000, helps us move forward with our long-range plans.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Anyone else with anything for Paul tonight? All right, thank you, Paul.
Actually, I would, if
Councilmember
I
Gilbert?
could, can we just get a tote board?
Sure. We can do
Post
that.
up what kind of grant monies we're pulling in. I think that's helpful,
It's mine.
make everybody aware that we're
Sounds
pursuing
good.
things, so.
You can look at them.
Huh?
That's what I said.
The tote board?
No.
Oh.
We're on the same brainwave.
All right, at this time, we will open the floor for public comment. Please state your name and address.
My name is Judy Keeling, and I live at 62180 Arlington Circle, and that is in Colonial Acres. As a personal thing, a mom of a handicapped child, I love that we're getting a handicap swing. My son's a little old for it, but it's a wonderful thing. Thank you. I would like to ask, Thomasville hasn't been on the agenda. And 2 meetings ago, it was going to be finalized, I thought. And I'm curious if I can ask why they haven't been on the agenda the last 2 meetings.
Well, this is actually still a budget discussion, but did we go to
No, so I can briefly, actually, maybe I should ask
We did go
City
to-
Manager
I'm
Zelnick.
sorry.
Yeah, we've been working with the individuals with Thomasville and trying to get their final approval that they were supposed to come before council. It was taken off the last agenda because they were working on specific details, and we took it off this agenda because they have not worked all those out all those details. Thomasville was originally working with, or one developer. The applicant is now looking at change to a to Pulte, another developer. So based upon some of those discussions that were taking place with us, they were making changes that needed to come back before Planning Commission again, and then as well as City Council. It's not just part of a final approval process. So we have to work out all those details before final decision, and items can be brought for council for that final decision.
So the original purchaser wasn't Pulte. This could be a new person. Pulte's new.
Pulte is new. The original applicant is different than what the potential final applicant may be. And I'm not sure if the city attorney wants to make another comment, additional comments on that, or was that enough?
Yeah, we've been made aware that Pulte is a contract purchaser for the development.
Thank you.
Okay, we will close public comment for this evening, and we'll move on to council comments. Councilmember Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this past weekend was the 15th annual South Lyon Creek cleanup. Volunteers from the area Boy Scouts, Michigan Seamless Tube, South Lyon DPW, and Stormwater Planning Program, as well as the South Lyon Water Wastewater Department and Wellhead Protection Program participated in the event. During the course of the day, they retrieved 55 to 60 yards of debris from the various South Lyon waterways. This included 25 car and tractor tires, a 1980s console television, a 1950s style washing machine, 3 grocery carts, and other items. So if anybody's missing those, Michigan Seamless Tube helped dispose of the debris, and Bell Tire in New Hudson disposed of the tires with a generous discount as far as the disposal fee was concerned. So we really appreciate the help in both of those areas. Obviously, these items should not have been disposed, should not have been in the waterways, so I'm encouraging everyone to dispose of the trash properly. On a related note, as the city's SEMCOG representative, I attended a seminar at SEMCOG's headquarters last week that dealt with the interrelationship between stormwater, wastewater, and drinking water. One of the biggest issues facing many cities in the 7-county area in southeast Michigan deals with wastewater and the items that end up in the city drains. It was emphasized that residents should never flush personal and baby wipes, facial tissue, condoms, tampons, sanitary products, cleaning wipes, dental floss, prescription and non-prescription drugs, cotton balls, swabs, or cigarette butts. These items can collect in the sewers and clog the pipes. In addition, all fats, oils, and greases from cooking should be disposed of in the trash and not put down the drain. When they are put down the drain, they tend to settle and solidify and reduce the flow in our city's waste system, which can lead to backups in our residents' homes. So again, please dispose of everything properly. There are only 3 things that should be flushed down the toilet. Number 1, number 2, and TP. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Kennedy. Councilmember Richards?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm so glad Steve brought that subject up because that's what I was going to cover. Now I don't have to cover all of it.
Glad to help, Carl.
I've just mentioned a few of the littler details. Sue Martin could not be here because of her foot injuries, and Larry's out of town, I guess. The cleanup was the same topic here. The cleanup was on the 13th. I was the oldest participant. Larry was next oldest. And the youngest was a girl 5 years old that showed up for the cleanup. We had a total of 74 volunteers. There were 22 pizzas bought and paid for at Hungry Howie's, and 18 2-liter bottles of pop, various kinds, all consumed right to the last box. And the tube mill disposed of everything in their dumpsters. Certain locations that are always a problem, 9 Mile and Dixboro Road, those areas. The cemetery, Yerkes Drain, and Bigby Coffee were really hot, tough spots. Also Hungry Howie's. We cleaned out the water's edge, and the tube mill provided colored vests and gloves for the participants, which was quite a plus, okay? And Sue put the summation of everything on WHMI radio, also in the South Lyon Herald and the Current newspaper, which is Livingston County, Green Oak Township, pretty much. And that's all for the expansion of the creek cleanup. On the 20th, last Saturday, I've been in touch with Dave Hall, that's the president of the union over in the tube mill. Their cleanup was supposed to be, and they got a little bit in before they got rained out. They go outside of the city limits. They do other things, okay? Green Oak Township and Lyon Township. They got the Kroger lot and another area on 9 Mile that we didn't get. Okay, thanks ever so much to the tube mill. You guys are great. And they're going to plan another one coming up here soon. Okay, the next big cleanup day is May 5th. Well, this is for the historical group, okay? When we have gardening and interior cleanup at the Historical Museum, and that's on a Sunday, okay? In conjunction with volunteers from the Methodist Church and some other places. And that's going to be organized and handled by Larry. Okay. For those of you who may have wondered, okay, next topic. For those of you who may have wondered, the house across the street, the red, white, and blue house, 234 West Liberty, which is a former Bonner location, it was closed on, in other words, sold to somebody else. Somebody actually really bought it 3 weeks ago. It's a done deal, and the sign is gone. They moved it down the street to 415, which they're working on. Okay, I wanted to bring something up here. Thanks to everyone that helped me out, or after my brief period of inactivity, I'm much better now. I did not have a heart attack, but it was very close. And I want to thank everyone that's been helpful to me in that regard. Next and last item, more volunteers are needed for our cemetery commission. And anybody that wants to come in, you go to the clerk's desk and you sign up on this form. This is what it is. And everybody has to sign it for all the commissions. And or contact me. And it'll be you know, an ongoing thing. And we're hoping for 6 to 10 or 12 members for the first year startup. And with that, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Richards. Councilmember Parisian?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have two things briefly. A kickoff meeting is going to be held for the 2019 Wreaths Across America ceremony, which is to be held on December 14, 2019 at the South Lyon Cemetery. The goal for this year for the Wreaths Across America group is to raise more funds to cover more service members' graves with wreaths. Spread the word and please consider coming to the kickoff meeting, which is going to be held on April 24th at 7 o'clock at the First Presbyterian Church in South Lyon. I can't stress enough how much this is an important thing that we need to have in our community. We need to honor our soldiers that are alive and both fallen as well. My second thing is Ladies' Night Out is on May 10th from 5 to 9. The first 250 customers get a swag bag and these cool bracelets that come in the swag bag. So be sure to get your tickets for that as well. We have, I believe it's 10 businesses from our downtown that are incorporated, and I think there's wine. So if that doesn't sell you, I don't know what does. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for listening. Have a good night.
Thank you, Councilmember Parisian. Councilmember Walton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of reminders for everybody. This upcoming weekend is the 2 weeks from now, the weekend of May 4th, is the citywide garage sales. That weekend is also the Salem South Lyon District Library is hosting their community document shredding event from 10 o'clock to 2 p.m. Keep in mind there is a 4-box limit per vehicle. That same day, Bissell Pet Foundation is sponsoring the Empty the Shelters event in many local shelters. They will cover a good portion of your adoption fees. So if you're looking for a new pet in your home, that would be the day to do it. Also on May 4th, it sounds like a very popular weekend, I hope the weather holds out, is the 5th annual pint-sized marathon happening here in McCaddy Park. So if you're not busy garage sailing, take a quick run, go back to garage sailing, go get a pet. You're going to have a good weekend that weekend. But the other thing that I want to address tonight is Senator Maureen Walsh's nasty comment about nurses playing cards while working. As we know, that was a grossly inappropriate comment. It was extremely disheartening to many people to hear that comment. And I just want to let her know that while nurses are not sitting around playing cards, they're taking care of your neighbors, they're taking care of your family, and they're taking care of your community. So you need to be aware of that, and you need to understand that they are there around the clock. They're on days, their nights, their weekends, their holidays. They give up their family time to be with yours. So to say that a nurse plays a lot of cards has got to be the most offensive comment I have heard this year. And I really hope that you can take the opportunity to correct that statement. Go spend some time in a hospital, volunteer a little bit, and really get to know what goes on. But I hope that next time you speak, you can correct your comments. That's all I want to say tonight. Everyone have a great night, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Councilmember Walton. Councilmember Kivel?
To piggyback on that, I hope she doesn't have any illnesses coming up very soon.
She actually did last year.
Oh,
She
brother.
spent a stint in hospital, so I would think that she would feel a little bit better.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. One of the consequences of us having this consent agenda that's supposed to streamline and save time for everything else is some things that are on the consent agenda get overlooked. I was hoping that Deb and Doug Cook would have spoke to the idea during public comments, but I just wanted to pass along that the Lake Street cruise-ins for 2019 will be held on May 22nd, June 26th, July 24th, August 28th, September 25th. Those are all on Wednesdays, the fourth Wednesday of the month, and they're heralded. It was a rave success last year for the Motor Fest that was held on a Saturday, and this year's will be Saturday, July 27th. That's an all-day event that we close off more of the streets downtown. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that that was an issue that was on the consent agenda, that you have to rely on us bringing it up or some representative speaking to it during the public comment section. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Great reminder there, Councilmember Kivel. Thank you. Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Thank you. I also would like to thank all the volunteers who helped with the 15th annual creek cleanup several weeks ago. This cleanup removed trash from local waterways, from creeks, and from streams. A big thank you does go out to Michigan Seamless Tube and to Larry Ledbetter. Also, a huge thank you goes out. I think everyone knows that Carl Richards, that this is one of his signature events that he participates in every year. And so, Carl, I just want to say that everyone was talking about what a great team you and Larry Ledbetter made during the whole day. Apparently, the two of you work really well together. Also, thanks to Ron Beeson, the South Lyon Area Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts, and to Ryan Lair. Thank you, everyone, for your stewardship in conserving our waterways. Next, I'd like to thank everyone who helped make the Kiwanis annual Easter egg hunt at Volunteer Park a great event for everyone, even though it rained. Thank you, Lyon Township Fire Department, for attending, along with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. And a huge thank you goes out to our own fire department. Chief Vogel, the whole crew was there, lined up in that parking lot, helping people park. It was just a horrible day, but I got to tell you, when there's Easter eggs and it's Easter, the kids come out. Also, a huge thanks goes out to the South Lyon Police Department, who was there greeting parents and passing out badges and stuffed toys and items for bikes. The kids and the parents definitely love their South Lyon Police Department. and the officers, even in the rain. It was just a great event, and everybody, you should have seen it. The South Lyon Police Department was just crowded with the kids. They had stuffed animals. It was just great to see the tremendous public relations that was going on that day, even in the rain. The kids loved it. Just a reminder to everyone that our communities, basically our senior communities, have posted signs regarding no solicitation. I have received several complaints from individuals who live in senior communities that there are people knocking on their doors, politicians, people selling windows, and they have come to me and asked that I make some sort of remark at my city council comments. So what I'm saying is please respect the desires of people who live on private property. By the way, when they post a no solicitation sign, this is private property, and you are walking onto their property, and they are telling you they don't want your literature. They do not want to come to the door. They do not want to greet you. Our senior communities need to be cared for, and strangers knocking on the doors of the elderly is not something that is a very welcoming event. Those non-solicitation signs that are in the senior communities are there for some very specific reasons. So I am just asking those individuals who have violated those solicitation signs, ignored those solicitation signs. I will be speaking with the chief of police after tonight's meeting to see what we can do to assist some of these communities with respect to enforcement. Next, I received a letter from the Department of Veteran Affairs thanking me for my compliments that I extended to one of their employees at the VA. The letter started out by saying, we are dealing with veterans, we are not dealing with procedures, we are dealing with their problems, not ours. Again, thank you to the VA employee, Miss Ronnie Fleming. I'll never meet you, I'll never shake your hand, I'll never be able to give you a hug, but you are truly a dedicated public servant who knows her job extremely well and made me proud to say I am glad you are in Philadelphia serving our veterans and their families. And speaking of veterans, I would just like to say that this past Christmas, me and many, many friends of mine donated money to buy Christmas wreaths at the Arlington National Cemetery. And I would ask that everybody please keep the Arlington National Cemetery in Washington, D.C. In the forefront this Christmas so that you purchase a wreath. You can go online and purchase a wreath and get it there. I think I'm going to be traveling, with some people this year. We're going to go down to Arlington and volunteer to help place those wreaths on the graves down there with the veterans. So if anybody's interested in making that road trip, let me know. It is an incredible sight. I was in Washington, did see the Arlington National Cemetery, and it is truly a time to sit back and reflect and thank every veteran that ever served in any war, regardless of what country you hail from. And last, I would like to hope that everyone had a joyful Easter and a blessed Passover. And thank you for inviting all of us into your home this evening, and have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kurtzwell. I just have a quick one based on from the city manager's note. Actually, it'll be a great year to have those NASA photos on display here over the summer, since it'll be the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing. So that'll be great. We'll have to make sure we stay on top of that and get that information out, because that'll be pretty special to have that here in the community for such a great anniversary. With that, I will look for a motion to adjourn this evening.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.